Hello my lovelies, so this is Lizzie from Love From Lizi, and today I'm bringing you the Love From Lizi May 2019 10 cards 1 kit video. And first up, I'm just going to run you through some of the embossing powders that sadly didn't turn up in time for my release video, so I'm just going to run through them quickly now. First up, we've got a glow in the dark embossing powder. I've been asked for this by one of my subscribers, so here it is. And then next up, we've got grape purple, and then this one here is fuchsia purple. It's a really lovely colour when melted. It's not pink, but it's a very soft purpley colour. And then we've also got soft violet, and then finally we've also got purple glitz. So we've got another glitz one to add there, and I've heated them all up to show you what they look like. And so this is that top one there, purple glitz. The next one is purple grape. The third one down is fuchsia purple, and the fourth is soft violet, and finally glow in the dark. And I did try to show you what the glow in the dark looks like in the dark, but my camera wouldn't pick it up, so I'm just running through these. So the glitz is really lovely and shiny, and then you've got these next two, the grape purple and fuchsia purple, that have got sort of like a pearlescence to them. I'm trying to get my camera to pick that up there, and there you can see. And then you've got the soft violet, which has got like a gloss finish to it. It's ever so smooth and shiny. And the same again with the glow in the dark. So those are the 5 new embossing powders, and you've actually got the facility to add to your kit boxes if you're a subscriber up until midnight of the 25th. So you've got approximately 24 hours from when this video goes up to still be able to get those in your kit boxes. And now I'm going to move across into making the actual cards, and I make all my card bases in the same way, which is I split my card lengthways down the middle to make a top folding A2 size card base, and then I just score that there at 5.5. So into card 1. I'm sort of putting a caveat out that I do this a lot in my videos today, so I'm leaving one lot in, and that's that I mark with my pencil where it is that I would like to cut my paper, and then I'm using my T-square ruler and a pencil just to mark some spider web lines, and then I'm just snipping that out with my big scissors. So I've chosen one of the pattern papers and a black card base here, and I've laid down a piece of ephemera which says shine, and then I'm taking some of the stickers from the kit and then just sort of placing those around the outside edge. I use my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive glue just to attach that directly onto the card base, and use some scrapbook adhesive foam squares just to pop up the shine, and I use my tweezers just to keep my fingers out of the way so that I can see where it is that I'm popping them. And then I've used here some of my new sway peel-offs, which I'm super excited about, and these ones actually came as part of the add-on pack that I released in the release video, and I've just run those all the way around the edge using the middle-sized border. It almost makes it look a little bit like a postage stamp around the edge, and they're in the gold mirror finish. And then I randomly dot some little bits of Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, and then I pick out some of the sequins in teal and black and just pop those in. And I do apologise for the presence of my head in this video. I've moved where my camera hangs, and I'm not quite used to it yet, so please bear with me with that. Into card 2, again I'm doing that same technique of marking with a pencil where I would like my lines to be. I've worked this out around my stamp, and I've chosen one of the pattern papers, and I'm just stamping the sentiment which comes in the stamp set, using Versamark ink, having used my anti-static powder tool. And I do that a few times just to make sure I get really good coverage. And I'm using 22 pink embossing powder, which is a really nice soft pink with a little bit of sparkle in there, and then I heat that up. Then with the peel-offs, I'm using the narrowest of the strips, and I just create a frame going around the outside of the embossing, but on the inside of the edge of the paper. And I'm just using my craft knife here just to cut that down a little bit. Here I'm using a piece of pattern paper just to cover off a strip of the front of the card base here, And again, just using my scissors just to snip that out. And then I lay that down onto my card base and draw some very faint pencil lines, just so that I've got an idea of how much of the card base is going to be exposed. And I take 2 of the small stamps from the stamp set. One is sort of like a leaf, a little leaf branch, and then the other is a tiny little flower. I do the leaf branch first, and then just fill in the gaps with the rest. And I leave those as watermark design on that purple cardstock base. I like doing this because it's a way to stop the back of a card looking so blank, but it's not overpowering. And then I just erase out those pencil lines, use the Deluxe Nouveau adhesive to attach that piece of paper onto the front of the card base. And then here I'm running the widest of the peel-offs of the sways that came in the kit just to that card base. I love purple and yellow. They really pop from one another, being that they're complementary. And then I get myself in a little bit of a pickle, get it all stuck to my fingers, but I get there in the end. And then I use some 3M foam mounting tape just to pop up that top panel, and then put some glue to the top of one of the puffy hearts that comes in the kit and some foam squares on the bottom, just to have that sort of sit off the bottom edge. Give that a good firm press down. And that is the end of card 2, apart from just a few little Nouveau drops just on that bottom piece of the patterned paper. All of my cards this month are actually quite simple. The fact that the kit has got a lot of ephemera and stickers lends itself that way. So hopefully I'm not running too quickly through these, but as you'll see in this card 3, I'm just taking a piece of patterned paper and I've laid a piece of ephemera over the top, which is the wreath ephemera, and then I lined up the smile stamp just to sit inside that. And then using my anti-static powder tool, I treat the paper just to make sure that I'm not going to get any extra left from when I pour the embossing powder over the top. I use my Versamark ink pad, and then I'm using Raven Black Love From Lizi embossing powder over the top of that smile. I heat set that, and then I'm taking some of the stickers just to build this wreath up a little bit. Now, quite often with stickers, I like to neutralise the back with anti-static powder tool and then 3D foam them up. But because a lot of these stickers are clear, I was actually laying them quite flat, which is different for me, and I'm actually really happy with how they came. So I've stuck some of the little blooms around the wreath, and then I tie a little bit of black ribbon, and I've left in how I tie my knot. Trim down those tails a little bit, and now here I'm using some of the hearts that come as this in the sticker set, and I'm just using the little lines on the pattern paper just to make sure that they're spaced nice and evenly. So it's a little bit of a cheat because I'm not having to use a ruler or anything, and they are all nice and straight and evenly spaced. And then I use some Deluxe Nouveau adhesive and just attach that down. I do make sure that I put a lot on the back because I've heat embossed, so I want to get a really good firm press. And then I just erase out any of those lines that are still showing from when I first snipped it. And then I go around the edge of the wreath once it's all attached, and just pop some little jewel drops there on just for a little bit of added extra. And that's the end of card 3. Now we're into card 4, and this may well be my favourite card, but please do comment and let me know which is your favourite, what it is you like. This is super simple. I've just taken a piece of pattern paper, trimmed it down, and then used some of the specialty pink cardstock to create a little matte layer there, ever such a fine line around the edge. And one of the reasons that I enjoy using glue when I attach these layers is that you've got a little bit of wiggle room. You know, if you don't lay it perfectly centered, then you've still got enough time to fix it. I popped some 3M mounting tape onto the back of that specialty cardstock, and then also onto this little gold foiled cactus, which I think is gorgeous. Pop those onto the front, and then use a sticker which says thanks from the sticker set, and I use my bone folder just to burnish that right down to make sure that it looks nice. And I'm just choosing a bow colour, and I think white works the best. And then I just pop that on the front there, and that's the end of that card. So super simple and quick. And then this is card 5. This is the one that I showed in the Facebook group, and I've just taken 2 stitched rectangle dies from my stash. These are Tim Holtz ones, and I did take a little bit of time lining them up, and then I used some painter's tape just to stop it from fidgeting around, and then I trimmed down some of the mirror gold cardstock from the kit and put that through my die cutting machine, and then I trim off the piece of ephemera there, so apologies to anyone that really particularly liked that bloom. And here I'm just snipping down into some very thin strips some 3M mounting tape, and then I pop my frame up onto the top of a teal card base. And once that's fixed down nicely, having given it a good firm press, I lay my ephemera piece in and then decide to foam mount that up as well. Now this was really quite fiddly. I trimmed down the tiniest of little pieces to put behind those leaves, but I didn't want any sagging or any of them to tear off, so it was definitely worth it. Again, apologies for my head here, but I will learn how to shoot better when I've with my camera where it is, because it is a much better setup. And then I remove all of the release paper from the mounting tape, and then pop that using my tweezers into the centre of the frame. I was considering a sentiment for this card, but there wasn't one that jumped out at me, so I left it blank and I'll put a greeting on the inside. Now at this point I decided to use one of these faux leather blooms, and I popped some extra adhesive glue onto the self-adhesive piece of the flower, because I really didn't want it to fall off. But I used my jelly, this is metallic jelly roll pen, just to embellish the leaves slightly, and then do lots and lots of little dots, which the camera doesn't quite pick up there, but it will do at the end in the still shots. Anyway, moving into card 6, and I take another piece of the pattern paper and I trim down a little strip to run across the front of the card, and I use another of those stitched rectangles dies, and then I am using my anti-static powder tool and my Versamark ink pad just to stamp that smile stamp again. I think that might be one of my favourites from this kit. And then I'm using the Love From Lizi Golden Crown embossing powder over the top of that smile. And I've left the heat setting in. This is one of my favourite things with card making, is watching the embossing powder melt. And then I sort of drag that piece of patterned paper just along the edges through my Versamark ink pad, and then pour on some embossing powder. Now, the problem with doing this technique is that you can't actually see where the ink is sitting, but I cheated and I used a paintbrush and I just brushed away where I thought it was a little bit too thick. And to be perfectly honest, the smile panel sits above most of this anyway, so it's not too much of a big deal if it does go everywhere. Then I use my Deluxe Nouveau adhesive and attach that towards the top of the card base, and then I pop down that smile panel, give it a good firm press because it's been heat embossed, and then I've taken one of the ephemera pieces, which is craft with gold foiling on it, and then I just snip down some of my Scotch tape roll there and then mount that up over the top of the sentiment. And I'm using my Nouveau drops here to create sort of like a little border with dots, and I do my borders almost always the same way. I do the outer edges and then the middle one and then fill in the gaps. And I'm also on this one going over the petals of the 2 blooms that are on that ephemera piece there. So this is a really simple card, and it came together quite quickly, but I'm really happy with how that turned out. And now we're into card 7. Now this one I wanted to use one of the cameras from the stamp set, and this is the largest of the cameras. And I was considering masking off the handle tail, the little hand strap, so that I could fit more of them on, but I decided to leave it in the end. And you can, when you're creating these sort of backgrounds, measure it out, because the Misty is great for this. But I decided to do it all sort of by eye, and I used pumice stone distress oxide ink. And there's a couple of little tips that I'd like to give you if you're going to follow in with this. Be aware of inky fingers. I'm using a card panel for this, so it doesn't matter about the fact that I'm stamping over the edge and then moving the card base, as it were, within the Misty, because on the back of this card panel there is quite a lot of smudged ink, and also when you're lining up where you're going to stamp, don't close it down completely because there will still be residual ink on your stamp. So here I had to make sure that it was exactly where I wanted it before I laid it down, and it was, but as you can see there's a little bit of ink there, so do be aware of that. And also when you're using the magnets with the oxide ink, because it does take a little bit longer to dry, it can sometimes stick to your magnets, and then when you move them and put them somewhere else on your card panel it may well smudge. And here I got some ink onto the door of my Misty, but I just wiped it over with my fingers, and thankfully for this project there wasn't any errors or smudges that I needed to try to hide. And then just for that last bit I wanted to pop some extra ones along the edge. I could have left it as it is at this point, but I just thought it'd be nice to continue it on, so I just moved my stamp around in my Misty. I could have used my regular Misty, that would have probably worked easier, but I have another lot of stamps in that Misty at the moment for another project that I'm working on, so I just used my mini, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think this would work really well as a masculine card, even though the camera's got a heart in it. I think with the colours that I ended up using, it worked quite well. And then just for these last bits, the little tails, I just stamped these with my fingers. I cheated rather than using the Misty. And now here I've taken a Copic marker in BG10, and I'm very sort of scratchily filling in the edges around the cameras, and I'm leaving my brush strokes in there. I'm not trying to do it nicely, just to give it a nice finish. And then here I'm using my Versafine Onyx Black ink to stamp hello, and then I glue that on directly onto a card base. So that is a single layer semi-masculine card that's going to be really pleasant to be in my stash, because it's just a very simple hello card. And now I'm moving into card 8, and I've got the other part of that white cardstock where I cut the back off, as it were, for the last card, and I use a rectangle die, a smaller rectangle die from that same set, and cut it out of the white cardstock because I knew that I'd be putting some patterned paper over the top. I trimmed down my pattern paper and attached that onto the front of what will be my card panel, and then having given that a good firm press, I use my scissors just to trim off the extra to make sure that everything all lines up nicely. And then on that rectangle that I die cut, I know that's where I'm going to have sort of my focal point of the card, and I use one of the widest sway peel-offs that comes into the kit, and ran that along that border. Just gives it a really nice finishing edge. And then I laid my ephemera piece down, and then popped one of the middle width peel-off strips there just along one side. I used some 3M mounting tape and pop the ephemera piece up, which matches perfectly to the patterned paper, so it all sort of coincides. And here I use my Wink of Stella, and this is where I made a bit of a boo-boo because I squeezed my pen. It's been a while since I've used it, and a great big blob came out, so I spread it around all over the ephemera piece. I did some of the background pieces, trying to just use up some of that extra fluid, and you'll see from the photograph at the end that over the plant pot there's a bit of extra Wink of Stella, but I think it adds character to my card. I attached a little sticker saying thanks towards the bottom, and then attached that down onto my card base. So card 9, because I'd used the white cardstock on 2 other cards as panels, I needed to create an extra base out of my cardstock. So I've got a very opulent gold Mirror cardstock base here. And this is a side fold card, and then I use a little bit of the extra, and I die cut out the thank you die that comes within the kit. And then I've got 3 pieces of patterned paper where I've used portions of, so this is a great card for using up scraps. And I just trim down 3 strips in differing widths, and then once they're all trimmed, I pop some glue directly onto the back, and then I've laid them at sort of a diagonal angle across the front of my card base, and I make sure that I butt them up really closely together, and because of the thickness of the cardstock, the card didn't want to stay closed. I'm sure it will after a little bit of time. But once they're all stuck down, I trim off the edges. And this is almost a little bit like using the heat embossing powder. Trimming off the edges once you've stuck something over the edge, and then turning the card round to see it finished and looking all nice and tidy. It's one of my favourite bits. And then I take the black glitter pinstripe peel-offs that also are a part of that selection pack that come with the kit this month, and I just run those along the edges just to give a little bit of definition between those different pattern papers, and think that it gives it a really nice little pop of something special. And then on the back of the thank you die cut, I pop some scrapbook adhesive foam squares just to give it a little bit of lift, and then I pop that up and onto the front of my card base. So this is another really super simple card, but it's a great way to use up some scraps if you've got them. And now we're going to be moving into card 10, and whether or not you've realised, but I haven't done a shaker card this time around, so I thought this would be a really good time to make one. And I'm using the dies in sort of an unconventional method. I'm not using them as for the shapes that they cut, but rather for what the relief is once they've been cut. So I lay down the 4 heart dies and then just attach those down with a bit of painter's tape just so that they don't shift in my die cut machine. And I'm sort of arranging them towards the bottom right hand corner, and then I use the 2 smaller ones again and attach those on and run those through the die cut machine, so that I've got, as it were, sort of a little spread of hearts towards the bottom. And then I use a piece of acetate from my stash, trim it down to size, and use some more of that Deluxe Nouveau adhesive just all the way around those hearts. And then I lay the acetate on top and give that a really nice good firm press to make sure that I get a good stick on there. And now I'm using some doubled up foam tape. So this is foam tape that's been folded in half, so it's got a double thickness to it, and I work that all the way around the edge. Now you could, if you wanted to, create a separate well for each of the hearts, but I thought it'd be fine just to have one great big area and put a lot of sequins in. I fill the rest of that card panel with double thickness foam, and then use anti-static powder tool around the inside of that well just to make sure the sequins don't stick where they shouldn't. And then I lay a good portion of my sequins from the kit onto my card base and then lay that panel on top. And before I give it a shake, I run my finger all the way around all of the foam pieces just to make sure that they stick well, and then I attach my sentiment, which is a smile sticker from the kit, and that's the end of card 10. So my kit leftovers, I've still got more than a card base's worth of the pearlescent rose. Then there's some of the gold mirror still. I've still got 6 full sheets of patterned paper, some of which I couldn't cut into because they're so pretty. I've got 1 good size and 2 mediums, and then 3 tiny weeny scrappy bits. That last piece I'm probably going to put in the bin, which is quite unlike me. I've got 2 full sheets of stickers, and then I've got 2 sheets of stickers where I only used 1, and then I've used a few from the others. So there's still plenty of play in the stickers. I've got lots of peel-offs left, obviously my stamp sets for keeps, as are my Nouveau drops. And then I've got 5 of the 6 blooms. I've still got 5 of the 6 bows. Lots of ribbon, as I only used a little bit of black. I've got all the puffy hearts apart from 1. I've got my dies, which obviously will go on forever and ever. Lots of sequins and tons of ephemera still. So if I'm happy to add more cardstock in, then I've got plenty to be playing with. So additional products, I use my scoreboard, my mounting tape, my Misty, some acetate, some of the peel-offs that come in the selection pack. And then I've got my Sizzix dies, I've got the foam mounting squares, the pumice stone, the Versavine, Versamark, an acrylic block, my coffee filter, Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, Raven Black, Golden Crown and Tutu Pink embossing powders, tweezers, my jelly roll pen, a Copic marker, pencil, my picket for the sequins, bone folder, paintbrush, just lots of regular sort of tools that I hope that you have in your stash. My heat gun, I use a die cutting machine, and my trimmer. And so here now are all 10 cards all laid out together. and some still shots of each of them. Please do let me know which is your favourite. The design team are working away on their cards, and we have got our blog hop in the beginning of May, so you have still got time. This kit is still in stock at the time of shooting and releasing this video, so if it's something that you're interested in, pop over to lovefromlizi.com and have a little look. And until next time, thank you ever so much for sticking with me until the end. Do take care, and happy paper crafting. Thanks, loves. Bye.